Hello and welcome. I'm Matsuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX. Well, let's take a look at some of the top stories. Trump's administration has frozen $26 billion in funding across Democratic states amid the government shutdown that has left 750,000 federal workers without pay. The U.S. Energy Department has also canceled $7.6 billion in climate projects, escalating partisan tensions as the Senate again failed to pass a stopgap measure. Israeli forces have stopped 13 boats from the global Smooth Flotilla, while 30 other boats continue towards Gaza. The interception by Israel has sparked global outrage as Turkey condemned it as an act of terror, while Colombian president responded by expelling Israel's diplomatic delegation and terminating a free trade deal with Israel. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of using over 20 drones to strike near Chernobyl and of failing to fix crucial power lines to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, while the Kremlin claimed it is working to restore them. The United States will provide Ukraine with intelligence on long-range energy infrastructure targets inside of Russia and is urging other NATO allies to do the same. The move marks President Donald Trump's first major policy shift in support of Kyiv, as Washington also considers sending long-range Tomahawk missiles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet around 50 European heads of state and EU leaders at the European Political Community Summit in Copenhagen today. President Zelensky will also hold a joint press conference with Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen during his visit. G7 finance ministers have vowed to target countries and companies which are still purchasing Russian oil and have agreed on trade measures to cut Russian revenues. The death toll from Typhoon Boloi in Vietnam has risen to 36 people, with 21 people missing and 147 injured, the government's disaster management agency has reported. Property damage has been updated to $435.8 million following the storm and floods after the typhoon. 2 people were killed when police opened fire on a crowd attempting to storm a police station in southern Morocco amid nationwide protests over corruption and inequality. More than 400 people have been arrested and nearly 300 injured during the nationwide unrest, which has been driven by the new Gen Z 212 movement. Now we move on. The Trump administration has frozen $26 billion in funding for Democrat-leaning states. This comes on the first day of the federal government shutdown. Of the total amount frozen, $18 billion belongs to the transit projects in New York approved by Congress. Earlier, the head of Federal Office of Management and Budget stated that these projects have been put on hold to ensure funding is not based on unconstitutional diversity, equity, and inclusion principles. The remaining $8 billion have been cut from climate-related projects, targeting policies favored by Democrat-run states. President Trump has also said that this government shutdown, which he blames on Democrats, must be used as an opportunity to eliminate wasteful and fraudulent expenditures and save billions of dollars. Meanwhile, residents of Washington, federal employees and tourists have reacted to the impact of the shutdown on their daily lives. Let's hear what they have said.
As a citizen, you're just concerned about safety of transportation. Here we are in Washington, D.C. to be able to do things. As a tourist, we spend a lot of money to get here, so hopefully we can do all the things we want to do. It's a little bit frustrating in that it seems to happen too often, and it seems like it's just political compromise after political compromise, which puts the American public potentially at risk or without services.
I'd like to see them do something on the healthcare. It's actually going to impact me. I get a subsidy on mine, and it's expensive, and it's got a big deductible. So it's not, and you really have no choice. You got one company that you get the insurance from. I'm in Florida. And I've got money put away. I can pay for it, and I'm not happy about it. If you're working on a paycheck to paycheck, it's going to be a big problem because it's a big number. I can see why they're going to fight for it.
It's stressful because you just have all this uncertainty. So I wish they would just get their act together so that we can all do what we do best at work, which is work and work for the American people, because I do.
It has not affected us at all up to today. It went into effect last night, but we were planning to come and see Washington, D.C., just the main highlights from outside, so it's not that big of a problem for us. Well, only thing we cannot do today because of the shutdown is accessing the Capitol. I think it would have been a nice visit, but whatever. Other than that, transportation is not affected, so we are not having any problems, and I assume we won't have any in the upcoming days.
Now, we move on. EU leaders have met in Copenhagen under growing pressure to strengthen European defense following a series of drone intrusions into EU airspace and recent disruptions at Danish airport and some other areas. Discussions included plans for a multi-layered drone wall to protect the continent as eastern flank countries like Poland and Estonia face increasing security challenges. At the conclusion of the informal meeting, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has emphasized the goal of building a Europe strong enough to deter a war, highlighting the urgency of action in the coming months and years. Let's listen in.
I like the idea of a drone wall, but we have to be very frank to the Europeans that no matter what kind of capabilities we are able to buy, to innovate, to build up, there will still be drones coming into Europe. Everybody knows now what is at stake. I think our main goal is simply to building a Europe so strong that war not will be an option. This is our main task in these weeks and months, and unfortunately also years. And I think we have had good discussions today, and now we are ready to take the next steps.
The Danish Prime Minister has further asserted that the next steps would include stepping up military and financial support for Ukraine, rearming European countries, and strengthening the production of drones and anti-drone technology. Additionally, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has called for stronger pressure on Russia, announcing a new package of robust sanctions targeting energy, finance, and trade, marking the 19th round of EU measures. Let's listen in.
So this is the time to further increase the pressure on Russia. And to this end, we proposed a new approach of sanctions. We do not approach the sanctions anymore in incremental steps, but we present much more robust measures on energy, on financial services, and on trade, and that is the 19th package of sanctions that is on the table right now. Now, what Belgium is concerned, it's absolutely clear that Belgium cannot be the one who is the only member state that is carrying the risk, but the risks have to be put on broader shoulders.
Speaking on the matter of European projects for common defenses, the Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has also confirmed that Greece will continue contributing to European defense initiatives, reinforcing collaboration among member states. Let's listen in.
Περί παγκόσμια γεωπολιτική αναταραχή δημιουργούνται, θα έλεγα, την αίσθηση του κατεπήγοντος ως προς την ανάγκη η Ευρώπη επιτέλους να περάσει από τα λόγια στην πράξη ως προς την ενιαία ευρωπαϊκή μισθολάκηση. Η Ελλάδα ανήκει στις χώρες εκείνες εδώ και πολλά χρόνια υποστηρίζουν τις αμυντικές τους δαπάνες σε επίπεδα πολύ υψηλότερα από την μέσου όρου και θα εξακολουθούμε να το κάνουμε αυτό, δεσμεύοντας πόρους άνω του 3% του ΑΕΠ και τις αμυντικές μας δαπάνες για τα επόμενα χρόνια. Έχει έρθει όμως η ώρα η Ευρώπη να κινητοποιήσει ευρωπαϊκούς πόρους για την υποστήριξη ευρωπαϊκών έργων κοινής ευρωπαϊκής άμυνας. για την πυραυλική προστασία ή όπως αυτό το τείχος άμυνας απέναντι σε
Several member states of EU have already supported the drone wall initiative, providing rapid detection and response to potential threats. 10 allies, including Poland, the UK, the Netherlands, Finland, Sweden, and the US, are offering anti-drone and surveillance support, with a German frigate recently docking in Copenhagen. In a related development, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has met with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. During the Copenhagen summit, the discussion has focused on UK's leadership in NATO operations, including support for the eastern flank and Ukraine, as well as coordinated defense strategies with France, Germany, and the US. Following these discussions, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to meet with around 50 European heads of state and other EU leaders at the European Political Community Summit in Copenhagen today. During his visit, he will also join Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen for a joint press conference. Now for this discussion, we're joined by retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us. Good to see you. Now looking at these news coming in from Europe, in your view, what are the key challenges and opportunities for Europe as it strengthens its defense capabilities while maintaining its democratic processes?
Shobha, good morning. Thank you for getting me to NewsX World once again. There are two parts in your question, challenges and opportunities for Europe. Before responding to your question, let me clarify one issue, that if at all the war broke out between Ukraine and Russia, then the problem, the entire onus of responsibility rests on the European Union or the NATO countries, the northern alliances. When I say this, I say with a lot of authority and conviction, because I am a student of geopolitics. I have spoken enough, I have done a lot of research. The entire blame goes on to them. It is up to them whether they wish to escalate the situation or de-escalate the situation, so as to bring peace and normalcy. Now, very briefly, go back to 9th February 1990. James Baker, Secretary of State, USA, pays a visit one-on-one with Mikhail Gorbachev and assures Mikhail Gorbachev, who was very apprehensive at collapsing the Berlin Wall and reunifying East Germany with West Germany, because he was very fearful that NATO would expand its sphere of influence, onto which James Baker had assured him, it's available, you Google up, you'll find anyway. There is a white paper on this. He had assured him that the sphere of influence of NATO will not expand an inch to the east of where it was then. Not only to the East Germany boundary, but also the entire eastern frontier or the border of Eastern Europe with that of so-called the Soviet Union. Now, with this backdrop, at that point in time, 12 founding members in 1949, and when this agreement or this assurance was given, it had gone up to 16 members in NATO. And today, as we are talking on your channel, it has gone to 32 members. And some of the countries of erstwhile USSR have actually gone on to the NATO. Estonia, you see, Latvia, Lithuania, all such kind of countries. So therefore, I would say, when you talk about the challenges, these challenges are actually very created in a fabricated, in an artificial manner. Today, there are new threats in 21st century. The threats are not same as 20th century. If they think that the Russian President Putin is going to invade into Europe, then they're simply they are ignoring the reality. The reality, there is a mass-scale invasion of non-indigenous population inside Europe today. That is a bigger threat. The migration, the boat people from Northwest Africa and the Middle East, not the Russian trying to invade into Europe. So therefore, when you talk about the challenges are artificially created in the minds of the Europeans. There is a deep state of America which is triggering the entire thought process so as to keep the business alive and ticking. So this is one. The opportunity when you talk of, I say the opportunity lies in the side of the peace. It will do good to the European Union, it will do good to the people in the NATO forces to think it in a realistic manner. Donald Trump started off with a right voting. Today he seems to be changed. So with this, I hope I have been able to answer your question to some extent, if not entirely.
Yes, indeed. We will continue that in our U.S. Russia, and Ukraine news. But staying on this Copenhagen topic for now, Major General, given the slower pace of defense decision making in European countries, compared to other regimes, how can Europe accelerate its defense investments and cooperation without compromising its democratic values of governance and accountability?
It's a very deep meaning question you have asked, Asova. I must compliment you and the channel. The fact of the matter remains that the complete Europe as on today, that is the European Union and the UK, they're driven by the very concept of security as being conceived by the deep state of America. Today, unfortunately, Donald Trump, who wanted to take care and address the threat or the challenges of deep state in America, has fallen into the trap of the deep state. The same man who came back with a resounding victory in his 2.0 tenure as President of America, contrary to his assurances that he would bring about peace between Russia and Ukraine within 24 hours of his assumption as president. Now it is almost going to be 8 or 9 months. So therefore, to respond to your question with regard to the Denmark leadership, I would say that there is already a rise of the percentage of the GDP of respective countries towards the defense expenditure. Number two, there is also a kind of a tacit commitment by USA, notwithstanding the flip-flop responses of the leadership. There is a kind of a standing invisible support of USA. As on today, there are American forces who are available, deployed in Europe. There are nuclear arsenals of America which are deployed in some of the countries in Europe. And there are Patriot missiles which are deployed in Europe. So therefore to say that what sense of governance is going to prevail, I would say talk it out, go meet Putin, have one-on-one discussion rather than putting every might and your thought process onto a escalatory matrix. It is not going to take anybody to a conclusive kind of an end. The end the world should look for in 21st century, as per my analysis, is peace and harmony. And the Copenhagen or the Denmark leadership would do well to think it over once again, rather than taking a regressive kind of a decision and adding fuel to the fire of preparing for a greater challenge of warfare, which is artificially being thought of. I would say they would do well if they go beat Putin, or Putin and all the relevant authorities, they meet up with each other, find some peace and harmony, and bring this mindless conflict to an end at the earliest.
Yes. Major General Sudhakarji, I completely agree with you over there. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of posing a threat to global security. This comes after Zelensky accused Russia of shelling attack that cut power to the defunct Chernobyl nuclear plant. He has also said that Russia was doing nothing to fix the cutoff to external power to the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Ukrainian energy officials said that the strikes cut off power to over 300,000 customers in the nearby Chernihiv region. Zelensky has said that more than 20 Russian drones had been deployed in the attack on the town of Slavutich that cut power to the nearby Chernobyl plant for 3 hours. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov had earlier said that Russia was doing everything to ensure the Zaporizhzhia plant's safety. He had said that it had come under repeated fire from Ukrainian forces. President Zelensky has said that the situation at the Zaporizhzhia plant was critical. Russia took control of the plant in the early weeks of the war, and each side regularly accuses the other of endangering nuclear safety. Now, for this discussion, we go back to retired Major General Sudhakarji. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, looking at this in wide eye, in what ways has this war between Ukraine and Russia reshaped regional security architectures in Europe?
Well, let's first of all, Asoma, address the question regarding Zaporizhzhia, the nuclear plant.
Yeah.
It's been with Russia for quite some time now. Allegations, counter allegations are rife. The fact of the matter is winter is round the corner. Rather, it would have set in there in Ukraine. It must have started becoming the cold, the chill of the winter should be slightly seeping in. As they go deeper into the winter, and if the power supply is cut off, then one can well imagine the life of the people who are surviving today, residing in Ukraine, will be hell. They cannot survive because the temperature, it plummets to minus 15 to 20 degrees in the peak of the winter. So therefore, this is a kind of a information warfare which is actually going on as per my understanding. Yes, some of the shelling would have taken place, and my accurate information that I have received as per that analysis, again it will take recourse to pointing a finger at Ukraine. So it would do good that if both the parties, they sit down. I think enough is enough. They sit down to stop this, allegations and counter allegations. I am given to understand that Ukrainian drones have come and hit the power station, and in response, the Russians have fired. But in a melee of warfare, the conflict which is raging for past 3.5 and more years of the warfare, these kind of allegations will continue to be thrown at each other.
Yes.
It doesn't get them any kind of solution. Therefore, if Ukrainians want some relief to the people who are in the receiving end, it will do them good if they do plain speaking and direct negotiations with relevant authority and bring this meaningless and useless kinds of allegations extending over past 3.5 years to an end, so that the
Yes.
people are safe and sound
Major
during
General,
coming winters.
Major General, I also wanted to ask your opinion on international institutions. What role should international institutions like the UN or IAEA play in mitigating these risks posed by ongoing hostilities, particularly near facilities, nuclear facilities? Also, do you think, are they still equipped to handle such crises in the context of modern warfare?
Yeah, good question. If you take your mind back, a similar kind of situation had cropped up about a year and a half, and both for Chernobyl as also Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, the IAEA is supposed to be responsible for International Atomic Energy Agency is responsible for all civilian assets of nuclear energy. So to that extent, it is supposed to intervene effectively and ensure that the installation is kept free of any kind of kinetic attrition by either of the parties. They have an important role. They also have some enforcement mandate. They should be able to enforce certain things both on the sides of Russia as also Ukraine. If they have not woken up, it's about time that they get a wake-up call and start taking action, lest they should be prepared to see nuclear radiation taking place. Number two is United Nations. I'm afraid, I must say very candidly, Asoma, you have raised a very important point. United Nations, being the nation which came into existence post Second World War, the primary mandate is to prevent any kind of conflict breaking out. If a conflict has broken out, it is supposed to ensure ceasefire. Unfortunately, the United Nations has not played its role to the barest minimum as far as the Ukraine and Russian conflict is concerned. It's about time if they want to actually remain relevant, they must step out of the realm of United Nations headquarters, come to the battlefield where the real action is taking place, negotiate with the people, take extra initiative, extraordinary steps to bring this allegation, counter-allegation, firing onto nuclear installations, and bring them to an end as soon as possible, lest we are heading for something disastrous in the mankind, which may take place to start with in Central Europe, but sooner or later the entire world order will get proliferated and impacted by the same.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Major General Sudhakarji for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic now. According to officials, the United States will provide Ukraine with intelligence on long-range energy targets inside of Russia. The move could help Kyiv strike refineries, pipelines, and power plants, aiming to cut Kremlin revenue. U.S. officials say NATO allies may provide similar support. This marks the first policy change signed off by U.S. President Donald Trump amid his tougher stance on Russia. Washington, D.C. has long shared intelligence with Ukraine, but the new support makes targeting energy infrastructure easier. Trump is also urging European countries to stop buying Russian oil, to enforce sanctions and limit funding for Russia's war in Ukraine. Now we go back to our guest discussion with retired Major General Sudhakarji. Major General, thank you for staying with us. And as you've also pointed it out a few times during our discussion today, this is all going to escalate if U.S. keeps supporting instead of Trump's earlier, or we saw that he could navigate towards peace between these two countries. So what are the potential risks and consequences of the U.S. providing Ukraine with intelligence and Tomahawk missile if they do so?
Dangerous. This is a very serious move, Asuma.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I must bring it out and call it out in simple language that instead of peace and harmony being on the side of the peace, the world seems to be heading for disaster, and it may be the Holocaust in real meaning. So talk about the intelligence, the accurate intelligence that the US has assured Ukraine. That means what? That means with the availability of Tomahawk missile, whose range goes up to something close to 2,500 kilometers, that means the strategic assets of Russia which are in the hinterland, quite in depth, they all are going to be within the targetable range. So that is going to actually escalate the current warfare intensity. So my only fear is that in response to this, Russia will start deploying its hypersonic missile, Oren-6 missile, which it hasn't done. It has used once or twice, that's it. And this hypersonic missile, it is not only going to target the Ukraine, it has the ability to go up to the center of Europe, go beyond the Atlantic, hit any target in USA. That is the kind of capability Russia has. So it is going to actually expand the scope and the limited boundaries of the ongoing conflict. So therefore, my only sincere request to the decision makers is that reconsider. This is a very dangerous move. As far as the sanctions that you mentioned in one part of your question is, let our viewers understand that from 2014 till 24th February 2022, until the war, the Russia invaded into Ukraine, there were roughly around 2,600 or plus minus sanctions already imposed on Russia. From the date the conflict was announced and invasion took place into Ukraine, that is 24th February 2022, till date, there are more than 23,865 sanctions already imposed on Russia. So put together, it is approximately 26,000 sanctions already approximately on Russia. Has the world order, despite all convergence of efforts, have we been able to bring any kind of telling impact on Russia to slow down or to bring the conflict from Russia's side to an end? Answer is no. The root cause of this conflict has to be understood from Russia's perspective. What made Russia to invade Ukraine? That has to be understood. Unless those key issues are actually factored in and addressed, I am afraid any amount of countermeasure in terms of sanctions in terms of long-range weapon systems, which are being considered for providing to Ukraine, in terms of long-range, specific, precise intelligence being provided. I am afraid these are highly detrimental. They will only escalate the current ongoing intensity of warfare.
Yes, indeed, scary times. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us and sharing that insight throughout our news on this topic. Thank you very much. Now, well, this is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.